Let them is popular advice, but what happens when silence allows manipulation, lies, or smear campaigns to escalate? Hi, I'm Dr. Jo Messenger. Thanks for tuning in. In this video, let's discuss the real life lessons of when to stand back and when to stand up. The real life lessons of how to protect your reputation, set boundaries, and respond without losing your integrity. Because there's a popular message doing the rounds, it's doing the rounds right now, and that is let them. Let them say what they want. Let them do what they want. Let them behave how they want. And in theory, this sounds peaceful. It sounds detached, it sounds evolved, and it sounds unbothered. But here's another truth that most people don't talk about. Let them only works when the situation is contained. Because in real life, some people don't stop. In real life, some people escalate. So when does let them work? Let them works when someone is having an opinion aloud and it doesn't affect your life. When someone doesn't like you and you can walk away. It works when someone behaves poorly and you can distance yourself. In those cases, yes, let them. Protect your peace, stay in your lane and just move on. But when does let them fail? Because there's also another reality. What happens when their lives spread? What happens when this narrative grows? What happens when your reputation is being dismantled, your work is affected, your health is affected, and your sleep is affected? What happens when silence is not peace? What happens when silence is perceived as weak? What happens when silence is even perceived as permission? I learned this lesson the hard way. I chose to stay silent. I chose to let karma take its course. I chose to let them. I thought that I was being mature. I thought that I was taking the higher ground. I thought that I was rising above. But what actually happened? The behaviour escalated. The accusations became progressively more outrageous. The smear campaign became more and more aggressive because my silence wasn't interpreted as strength or maturity or any sort of wisdom. My silence was interpreted as agreement, as weakness and naivety. My silence was interpreted as she doesn't know who is doing what, even though it was obvious to blind Freddy and everyone except the perpetrator's brainwashed flying monkeys who was doing what and how and when. The people in the short term, the people who couldn't see what's going on, in the short term, they directly benefited from the smear campaign against me. But unfortunately for them, in the longer term, they also are now seen as accessories. And when people are committed to creating or perpetuating a false narrative and refuse to stop, they'll naturally have to accept responsibility under universal law. Much like how the Catholics have confession. They have to speak ownership over their mistakes and transgressions and display remorse for what they've done before they can seek atonement or be absolved of the consequences of their mistakes and their transgressions. When someone is driven by jealousy, insecurity, or the need to control a narrative, especially a narrative over somebody else, they're not looking for truth. Nobody is jealous of a loser. People who are driven by jealousy, insecurity, or the need to control a narrative over somebody else are looking for dominance. And if you don't respond at all, they'll fill the silence with their version of the story. If you don't respond at all, they'll fill the silence with any and all narratives, no matter how ludicrous it is, that suit their agenda, which is a dream come true for pathological liars. And over time, that version becomes truth to the people around them. There comes a point when let them is no longer wisdom. There comes a point when let them becomes self-abandonment. And that's when you must switch from let them to don't let them. Don't let them ever again. Not with aggression, not with revenge, not with emotional chaos, but with clarity. What does don't let them actually look like? It looks like speaking up calmly and factually, not exaggerating to suit your agenda. Stick to the facts. It looks like clarifying who you are and what you stand for. It looks like demonstrating your integrity through your actions, not shrinking to avoid conflict, not staying silent to keep the peace, because peace without truth is not peace, it's suppression. Where's the balance? It's not about fighting everyone all the time. It's about discernment. Some situations require detachment and others require definition. You don't need to react to everything, but you must respond when someone threatens your reputation, your livelihood, your well-being, your health, your wealth, or your truth. And you must respond when someone threatens the reputation, the livelihood, the well-being of anyone around you who is unable to defend themselves. Here's the thing. When I finally spoke up, not emotionally, not defensively, but clearly and factually, all hell broke loose. My light irritated more demons than you could possibly imagine. Well, maybe not, because you're smart. When I finally spoke up, the smear campaigners, the haters, the jealous witches, the pathological liars, the energy harvesters, the destiny swappers, the egotistical alcoholics and their debaucherous, weak-minded friends and all their flying monkeys instantly went 10 toes down and embarked on an even more treacherous campaign against me, my family, and anyone around me. My haters didn't just want to end me, they wanted to end everything I loved and valued. And they wanted to tell the world how good they were, how noble they were, and that everything that they had stolen was actually theirs. The problem for them was when I withdrew my energy and all of a sudden they were left in their own energy without the glamour that they had put themselves in, when they were back to not being able to create what they had been able to create when I was in the picture. The problem for them was anyone with half a brain knew I didn't drink, smoke, date, or do anything underhanded. The problem for them was everyone who knows me knows I was born committed to helping people to be the best version of themselves so they can leave themselves and the planet in a better state than when they arrived. Hence, when I continued speaking up, something eventually shifted. The narrative cracked. The truth became visible. The truth even became visible to the previously hoodwinked flying monkeys. And the same people who were confident in their lies and their false stories about me were suddenly publicly exposed. They were exposed not because I attacked them, but because I stopped allowing the lie to stand unchallenged. And the more unhinged they became, the more obvious it was to people who'd previously had an agenda in denying what was really happening. But what has this got to do with you? If you're dealing with false accusations, if you're dealing with toxic narratives, with manipulators, with pathological liars, with narcissistic game-playing exes, if you're dealing with overbearing family members or workplace bullies or people just trying to define who you are instead of you defining who you are, ask yourself, am I staying silent out of strength? Am I staying silent out of the delusion it will all just go away, that it doesn't even matter? Am I staying silent out of the assumption that other people will be able to see the truth, they'll be able to see the lies? Or are you staying silent out of fear? Because there's a difference. And this doesn't mean argue with everyone. It doesn't mean defend yourself constantly or become reactive, because that's the other trap. More importantly, don't swing to the other extreme. Instead, be selective, be calm, be clear, and be confident. You are the best you that you can be. There's no other subject. There's no one who can do you better than you. Let them is powerful, but only in the right context. Some situations don't require silence. Some situations require your sovereignty. Some situations require you to stand in who you are. Some situations require you to not allow someone else to define who you are for you. Make sure that you know the difference. Make sure you know when to let them and when to not let them, because your peace matters, your truth matters, and your reputation doesn't just matter, it's crucial, because it walks ahead of you.